I'm here today to review the Hahnemühle hand lettering pad, and I've been using this, so it isn't pristine. Normally I would be using something that I hadn't actually started using first, but it's just been so handy for doing my step outs, so I've already used some of the pages. Can you focus here? I wanted to show you. This has a glued binding. It's meant to come out. As you can see here, it doesn't take a whole lot, but I can shake it fairly vigorously. It's not going to just fall out. It will separate easily. I'll post this on my blog so you can look at it a little closer here. But this, I've used several different types of pens and markers: alcohol marker, permanent marker, technical pen, India ink marker, brush pen medium, color brush, fountain pen, colored pencil, highlighter, watercolor, just a regular pencil, a fine liner, fluorescent gel pen. Now, as for bleed through and show through, on the back, the alcohol marker bled through. This is a paper formulated for markers and pens, but not specifically for alcohol marker, and that's a beast all on its own. It's going to bleed through unless you have extremely heavy paper, or if you have a specially formulated, it has a special coating. This paper feels very similar to that sort of paper. It's a very smooth, and even though it's only 80 pound, let me get here, kind of hear that, it's almost translucent. It reminds me very much of a vellum. It doesn't say that it's a vellum, so I'm going to assume that it is not. Usually manufacturers want you to know when something is vellum. There's 25 sheets in the pad, 80 pounds. As I say, it's not a heavy paper, and yet when you pick up a sheet of it, it feels heavy in your hand, and it is not a paper that's going to be easily wrinkled. I was even surprised that it held up to watercolor as well as it did. A little bit of wrinkling. I'm not going to recommend this as watercolor paper by any means, but if you wanted to fill in small areas, you could, and you would just get a very little wrinkling, or not wrinkling, but the dimpling where, you know, the paper kind of gets the little dips in it. And I was halfway through. I have a mind that tends to hop around. I'm sorry about that. The bleed through for the permanent marker, I was actually a little surprised that the permanent marker bled through as much as it did, just because of the type of paper this is, but that was my expectation. The permanent marker, I think it's a water base, but it's a very wet medium, and it bleeds through on a lot of papers, but not all of them. So those were the only two things that bled through. Show through, like I say, it's sort of a vellum sort of paper. Now, lying down flat, you just very much see just a bit of a ghost. If you hold it up to the light, yes, you do see show through, but really there isn't a whole lot of show through. Mostly it's just that alcohol marker and the permanent marker, and really those pretty standard results as far as those two. The colors are nice and crisp. The only thing that I had any kind of feathering or, you know, just the little lines was with the India ink marker, and that is very definitely the pen. I've had that problem with it consistently. The fabric just peels off. I like the ink itself, but the pen, I'm not even going to name it. I mean, I won't say that it was a worthless purchase, but I do have to fight that. I did want to see if it did show through. I used it for that more than anything. You can see how dark these two are, but no bleed through, and only show through if you're holding it to the light. Pencil. Colored pencil. As I say, it's a smooth paper. You're going to get a little bit of streaking. It's not too bad, less than I expected. You're not going to be able to layer because the colors sort of slide around. And I say you won't be able to layer very much. I think you could probably do 2 or 3 layers with no problem. But overall, it's not a color pencil paper. I'm going to use it in the example I'm doing, but I'm going to be using it over some things that will give a little bit more tooth. Now then, pencil. This was a surprise, not in how it handled so much. It doesn't go on too smoothly. The paper's too slick. But it does go on. It smears and erases about what I would expect. What did surprise me is now, like, after I did this probably a week ago, and usually when you use pencil, and especially if you use it heavily, the graphite continues to come off. It'll rub off on your fingers. And it doesn't. It has set. So what you've got is there. I could still erase it, but it's not going to smear off on things. That actually was a surprise. Very nice for fine liner. Your fluorescent pens really rock on it. On my Fun and Easy landscapes, when I did the elephant, I drew these guys, and I decided that I'm going to use them to continue showing how a lot of these particular pens and things work. I've got a mess of stuff here. I'm using the Sensations technical drawing pen. The reason I chose a technical drawing pen is because it's waterproof. Even though I don't intend to use watercolor, I'm going to be using some mild liners. They're a highlighter. And I will be using some Sarasa fine liners. The Sarasa fine liners won't be a problem, and neither will the colored pencil that I'm using. I'm using a mechanical colored pencil. But the mild liners are pretty wet, and they will reactivate something if it is not waterproof. So by using the waterproof pen, I can kind of avoid getting that muddy color, because in smearing the black, it does, even with using waterproof, you need to let the pen and the ink set for a little bit to make sure it is thoroughly dry. So I'm going to add a few things here to these elephants. Let's get a little bit of... Now, you always want to do something to ground the elephant. And because I want to keep the length down here, I'm going to be very simple today. A lot of times I do shadows, and I'm not going to get too involved with that kind of thing today. Just, like I say, I don't want to go on too long. I'm going to add an elephant foot tree in here. Let's make this guy kind of sitting. That's another one of my step outs. And if you want to see how these are done, the step outs are all on my blog. The elephant foot tree I did before I started doing videos, so there's, other than what I'm doing right now, there isn't a video of them being drawn. But the step out, you can find it. I have a list of all the step outs at my blog, and I will put the link down, so if you want to draw these or see how they're drawn, you can go out and find them. And the elephant was done on video, so that is there in my video feed. And that has to be, these lines sort of tie, you need something to tie it to the ground so it doesn't look like it's just floating there. And let's do some more trees. This one is my skyscraper trees. It was one of my first videos, so it is on video. And it's similar to another step out that I had done, which is not on video, and that's grove. And the idea behind this one is that it's in the distance and you want to suggest a grove of trees, a whole bunch of trees, without having a whole lot of detail. Again, something's further in the distance, you don't have as much detail. So this sort of gives that impression in a very easy way. And that's going to be my horizon line. Not going to be an even, I'll give it up here. Now, you notice that I came up a little bit. It's because as I was coming here, I go, uh-oh, I'm going to be going evenly with the back of this elephant. And that's sort of a compositional no-no. You don't want your lines to bisect the lines of something else because it confuses the eye. So I came up a little bit just so that I would avoid that. I'll come over here. And I've got that. Let's do another one of the elephant foot trees, but we're going to do him more like he's a bush. There is such a thing as the elephant foot tree. The skyscraper tree, that was my imagination, but if you want to Google elephant foot tree, there's a lot of variations, lots of different species of it, and it looks a lot different depending on the season. So you can go out, you Google it, you might come up with some other ideas. This is a very stylized version that I hope is fairly easy for you. And we're going to make it so that trunk is very short. Make it, like I say, a little bit more like it's a bush. We'll do that. Okay, and that's more than enough. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to stop for a minute and let that ink set, because if I start using the mild liner on it now, it will smear a bit. I'll only need to take about maybe 10 or 15 minutes away.